Gyre is one of the most interesting Warframes in the game. She can be a Gunrunner, she can be a nuke, and today I decided why not combine the best of both worlds and make one build that you can use with Gyre literally anywhere. So today, Gyre, new augment in the new Valis Undermind update, and a new build for my channel because I've never done a Gyre build video. So let's quickly hop into it. Gyre is one of the Warframes that I was too afraid to touch up until now, just because my survivability skills in Warframe, especially with shield gating, are absolute trash. So I needed something to help me out with that, and we have gotten that in the Valis Undermind update. What is that? I guess you'll have to wait till you find out, but we're gonna move on to the fashion frame. Yes, she did get a new deluxe skin and she looks incredibly good. Look at all of that. I made her basically look bronze. I love the look. The purple, black and orange combo worked out extremely well here. What would also work out extremely well for me and especially for you is subbing to the channel, leaving a like, hitting that bell icon. All of that is very much appreciated by me, and thank you whoever hits that button. Let's see, 23,000 by the end of the year. But now let's cover Gyre, her passive abilities, and everything in between. So, we're gonna start off with her passive. Gyre's passive is gonna give you additional critical chance, 10 per active electricity status proc affecting an individual target, and you will deal 2.0 times critical damage multiplier, but against that target only. Now, the bonus does additively stack with Cathode Grace, which is an ability we'll get into just a second, increasing the overall ability chance at the lower electricity proc status counts. Both of them combined can give you a total of 300% ability critical chance, and also the critical damage multipliers can go all the way up to 4 times, which is gonna be incredibly good. So her passive, a really good one with her kit, and her kit starts off with her first ability being Arcsphere. You throw a ball and this ball is gonna deal continuous electricity damage. It's gonna do damage over second, of course, and you can actually manually detonate it if you want by pressing the first key as well. The electricity procs are guaranteed, as I mentioned, and the damage per second inflicted by the electric fields is multiplied by 2 times if at least 3 enemies are hit inside of that initial impact radius, which is very good. And you can have a maximum of 3 of these guys active, and you're pretty much going to be using them all of the time, and that's mostly because of shield gating and keeping you alive. There is also cool ability synergies with this Warframe. We are going to talk about the Gyre's passive and Cathode Grace that enable ability critical hits by granting you up to 300% and damage to those status effects dealt by Arcsphere are going to be increased as well, alongside the Rotoswell, which is another ability that we will get into quite soon. But we do have an augment here that I do want to talk about, and that is Conductive Sphere. Now, projectiles that pass through Arcsphere have a guaranteed electricity status effect and electricity damage increased by 75%, but this will go a little bit higher if you put it in the build. Nonetheless, this will give you even more damage, and it is going to be really good. This is going to be especially good with a really good weapon, which we will cover in just a second. But now, Coil Horizon, her second ability. You throw electricity ball that you can manually detonate, but it is going to bounce off terrain a little bit and then activate basically a small little Bastille or a vortex that's going to drag enemies in, of course, dealing electricity damage. And as I said, you can manually detonate it when you want to actually drag in those enemies. The good thing, there is a synergy with your first and, of course, Cathode Grace. Again, 300% critical chance and critical damage about your status effects, of course, but you can actually increase Arcsphere's damage enhancement that you gain with your second ability if you activate it inside of Arcsphere. But this is something that we're not going to be using. We're going to be utilizing a Helmith ability here, and that Helmith ability of choice is going to be Roar. Roar is, in my opinion, one of the best abilities you can possibly put on this frame, considering we're sort of going for a half Gunrunner, half nuking build. This this is going to be incredibly good for both sides, increasing your power strength and also your damage of your weapons. And now let's move on to the third ability, Cathode Grace. We have talked about this ability many times now, but what does it actually do? This is going to give you increased critical chance, which is going to be incredibly good for all of your weapons, which is going to be even better. We're mostly going to be focusing on rifles, but you never know, you could use melee weapons here as well. Also, you do gain energy regeneration per second, which is going to be very good, and it does slowly increase. The ability does have a base 8-second duration, but for each enemy killed directly by you or by any source while affected by a status effect inflicted by Gyre, so either be electricity or another one, your duration will increase to a maximum of 60 seconds, it says on the wiki, but you can go even further beyond. Now, there's a couple of things that I do want to mention here. It is additive critical chance to Point Strike, Pistol Gambit, and True Steel as well, so keep that in mind. The critical chance bonus for your abilities is percentage point based, so keep that in mind as well. This is another way to increase your ability damage, and the bonus is additive to Gyre's passive, so keep that in mind. Nonetheless, this is one of her best abilities, and slap on the augment mod and you have an even better ability. We have Cathode Current. Cathode Current, when you eliminate an enemy while Cathode Grace is active, and it's going to be active all of the time, it will release an additional discharge from Rotoswell with 200% damage and extends the duration by the same amount. Both of these are going to keeping your fourth and your third ability pretty much active all of the time, which is going to be so good because this is sort of where your nuking aspect comes in. These discharges are going to be almost proccing continuously and continuously doing damage. Now, you won't kill any acolytes with it probably, but the damage is substantial enough that you can pretty much clear out a lot of the enemies in any sort of Steel Path gameplay that you're going to have. Nonetheless, we are going to move on to the fourth ability, Rotoswell. And Rotoswell, your fourth ability, will first of all give you 1.5 times increase to your movement speed. It does regenerate energy per second as well, and you generate these general blocks around you. When you hit an enemy with these general blocks, it will dish out electricity damage. But the main feature of this is going to be, while this ability is active, all of the critical hits that you inflict on enemies will produce a lightning discharge that will chain from that to enemy outwards to the closest 5 enemies. And all of these crits are pretty much gonna be red because all of the buffs that we're getting. Now, we do also have some ability synergies. Gyre's passive in Cathode Grace enable the ability crits to go up to 300%, and that does apply to the damage and status effects dealt by Rotoswell. And critical hits from Arcsphere and the Coil Horizon will trigger the effect as well of discharging the electricity. This, alongside your third, is going to be pretty much, as well with your first, is pretty much gonna be your nuking aspect of the build. But there is one more thing that I do want to mention, and that is the newest augment, Reverse Rotoswell. Now, what does this augment actually do? First of all, 35% of the damage received is redirected towards the instigator as electricity damage. Keeping in mind this damage is going to be much higher, and it does go up to 75%. Now, this does basically work like a damage reduction, so it can go up to 75%, and believe me, this helps you out a lot. And now that we have covered all the abilities, we can move on to the main build of today's video. As you can see the build up on screen, in the aura slot we have Brief Respite alongside Power Drift. We also have Prime Continuity, Blind Rage, Equilibrium, Reverse Rotoswell. We have Cathode Current, Precision Intensify, Archon Stretch, and Rolling Guard, alongside Mote Augmented and Arcane Aegis. Now, a couple of changes that you can make are, first of all, you can add in Conductive Sphere instead of a Reverse Rotoswell, and you can install Umbral Intensify instead of Precision Intensify if you want to, considering Precision Intensify is only buffing the strength of your fourth ability. Now, you can also switch out Arcane Aegis for Arcane Barrier if you have it, because I do it sometimes as well and it helps me out with survivability. Now, if you're gonna use Cathode Current, your damage is gonna be much bigger than mine, but as I said, Reverse Rotoswell is mostly gonna keep you alive, and this helps you out a lot. Because damage redirection and damage reduction actually work on shields now, it is incredibly good for for a survivability ability, and again, you do get to discharge that electricity back at those opponents, which makes it incredibly good. Now, what's going to be also good is the Archon shards of choice. We have one Tau Forged Crimson Red one giving us 15% ability duration. We also have two Tau Forged blue ones that will give us a maximum of 150 energy alongside one normal casting speed one or a yellow Archon shard. Now, the last slot you can place in whatever you want here. You can place a blue Archon shard, a red Archon shard for power strength, literally anything that you would want. I personally left it open because I don't find it necessary on her at all, but it is up to you as always. And now, the focus school of choice. The focus school of choice is going to be Madurai. It is not necessary, but the two main things here are going to be power transfer. You gain 50% casting speed when switching to your operator, and you gain sling strength, which is going to give you power strength, 40% of it, if you sling multiple times and then transfer to your Warframe, which, as I said, can be careful, but it's not necessary. But what are the weapons of choice? And we have a couple here. My main one is going to be the Trumna Prime, and you can see the build up on screen right now. This is my main weapon with her because of the insane damage of the weapon itself doing and its ult fire being able to literally nuke entire rooms. Now, launching a grenade and that grenade bouncing off, exploding many times and just killing everything in front of you. The second weapon that I recommend is going to be the Kuva Ogress. The Kuva Ogress is going to be incredibly good as well. You can see the build up on screen right now. The element that I went for was Toxin, so yeah, you can go for Toxin, but you can choose any element to your liking. The good ones that I would recommend are going to be cold and heat as well. And my final weapon is going to be the Strun Incarnate, which the build and the evolutions are up on screen right now. As you may have noticed, I went for a lot of AoE weapons. AoE weapons on this Warframe are incredibly good and much more preferred than using single target weapons, so if you possibly can, bring yourself an AoE weapon. And now, the companion of choice. The companion of choice is going to be Nautilus with Hellstrom, which you can see up on screen right now. Nautilus is going to drag in enemies with Cordon, of course, as always, gonna spread many of those status effects that we have on our Hellstrom, and which is very good. Reinforced Bond, which is gonna increase your fire rate of your primaries, which is gonna be helpful loads, trust. And that is one of the main features why I chose to use Nautilus Prime, alongside, of course, the dragging in of enemies, making them much easier to nuke and electrify. And now, how am I supposed to electrify, nuke, and shoot down my enemies? How are we supposed to play Gyre? Well, activate your third ability, pretty much have it active all of the time, and it is because you're going to be killing a lot of enemies, and then activate your fourth, and then your roar, and keep up your first ability. Your first ability is going to be multiple tools here. First of all, it's going to boost the damage of your weapons, and it's also going to be applying loads of electricity on enemies as well, and proccing it multiple times. Alongside all the synergies that I mentioned earlier, it is going to be incredibly good, and you're pretty much going to be nuking with this ability a lot. If you do get in trouble, you do have Rolling Garn. As I said, use your first ability and sometimes roar as well as a scapegoat and save yourself from those fatal blows, but reverse Rotoswell does work incredibly good as well if you are using it. And that is pretty much it. All you have to do is keep up your first ability. Your fourth and third are pretty much going to be all the time active, and then just shoot down enemies. Pretty much plain and simple. I am actually quite satisfied with Gyre. It took me a long time to play her just because of her survivability, but as a gun buffing and sort of like a mini nuking frame, she is actually very good. I am very interested in your guys' opinion of Gyre, so leave it in the comment section down below. What do you think of the new augment? What do you think of the Warframe itself? Quite interested in that. And as I mentioned earlier, leaving a like, subscribe, hitting that bell icon helps out tremendously as well. This has been your lovely host, the Gaming Weasel, and I'll see you guys on the next one. I'm over and out.